Hello. Welcome back. Sorry that we're back to our live stuff, but our editor will be back with us soon, I swear. This week, I just want to talk about something outside of how do I get an agent. There is one thing I always get asked the most by people, DMs, emails, meeting them. It's always, what is it like in a writer's room? The TV writer's room. Group of writers, couple of assistants sitting around a table or logging onto a Zoom and creating a season of TV. I think for most of us growing up and wanting to do this job, that's the dream. And everybody is working so hard to get in, and we all have a fantasy of what it's like. And guess what? The fantasy is not far off at all. For me, it started with the Dick Van Dyke Show. You know, Rob Petrie is the head writer for the Alan Brady Show, working with Buddy and Sally every week to write a new show, going home to Mary Tyler Moore. Perfect life, you know what I mean? And I guess so many people approached Dick Van Dyke that when he first met SNL writer Alan Zweibel in an elevator one time, and Zweibel told him that he inspired his life, and Dick Van Dyke said, "Well, don't forget when that show ended, I became an alcoholic and lost everything." And it's just like, so anyway, here are 14 things that I have either been asked about or have found to be true during my time in writers' rooms, with one little mea culpa at the end too. Number one, it's fun. Like you hope it's going to be, and that's definitely a part of the fantasy, along with maybe sort of that grind of cranking out awesome stuff. But it's way more fun and way more like play than I feared the night before my first room. Is it often like a combination of high school speech class and some improv class you were forced to sign up for? Yeah. But it's also a place where everything you ever read or watched or listened to your entire life is back in play to influence you in the moment. It's a very alive place. Number two, starting up doing the job at first is scary, pretty much like the first days of school. You most likely don't know anybody else there too well in a first season room. Maybe someone, but that still leaves like a lot of new people that you're not going to know. And you're essentially going to work to talk about things like your innermost feelings and your most intimate moments and your most aspirational thoughts and your darkest notions. And all these people that you really don't know are there. But the good news comes in number three, when you realize that sort of, we're all different, but we're all the same. Like we've all had a lot of the same experiences watching things together, but separately. Like we all grew up watching movies and TV. And in most cases, we watched a lot of the same movies and TV, but we did it together. We were separate, but we did it together. But now we're here in this room where we get to talk about it and build on it together. Number four, this is four, you realize just how good other people are. I think it takes a certain amount of ego to do this job because really you're kind of asserting that the ideas that pop up randomly in your brain are valuable or profound or both. So there's a definite ego to even do this job. Then you sit in a room and you realize like, I'm like the fifth out of seven people in this room when it comes to great ideas. Like there's some awesome people around here just kicking ass. And sometimes I'm just caught up watching. So yeah, other writers, a lot of them are really, really good. And if you think like a fan, which I think we all are, because that's why we got into this stuff, because we were fans, right? If you think like a fan, it's really awesome news to see how good so many writers are, because it means that there's just plenty more great TV and movies to come. Number five, you realize in a room your own specialties. When you write a movie, you're alone, you do everything, When you're in a room, there's a team, and some people are so much better than you are at like breaking a scene or outlining a character or whatever, And guess what? You benefit from that. First off, your name's on the same show. Hey. Second, you pick up amazing techniques from your peers. Great place to be for learning, which leads to number six. You realize in a writer's room your own gaps in your own education in terms of writing. We all have missing pieces in our experience, in our education when it comes to writing, and a room really lets you see your own gaps. But the good news is it also helps you fill in those gaps learning by watching, right? So it's a good place to be to discover that about yourself. Number seven, you learn a lot about people. Like we all try not to live in a bubble, but we also live in some kind of a bubble, right? And a room is a great place to come to a full understanding of some other people, because in the course of your time together, it's all gonna come out, and it's all material to be used. Number 8, you will zone out sometimes. When I wrote what I am saying to you right now, I was sitting in a room on a Zoom, and it was going on, and I thought, I better do this thing for later, real quick. It's okay to zone out sometimes. It's like, I think for all of us, it's a part of our process, and sometimes where we find that stuff. Number 9, you'll pitch something just bad. Like, I've seen heroes of yours pitch things that absolutely just died in the room. And everybody just kind of moves on, I mean, like, you make jokes about it privately later, of course, but you just kind of move on. It happens to every single one of us in there. So, hey, got to all learn to live with it. Number 10, lunch is a genuine highlight. The menu getting passed out in the morning for some reason is a real moment of glee. The sheet that you write your order down on, for the most part, becomes this really curiosity thing as it gets passed around, and you can see the people who read the whole thing and absorb it and the people who don't. Really interesting study there. I think just lunch as a concept also is just this idea that there's a break time coming near, and it helps sort of like organize the day, like the seasons do with the year. And it helps you parse out your energy, and it also gives you some time to sort of mentally catch up when you get there. So, number 11, at least for me, after lunch sucks. The energy just seems different. I've never personally seen anything truly amazing happen after lunch, except a lot of like clock watching and stuff. And again, I could just be projecting, but here we are. Number 12, just something to think about and prepare for. And listen, I'm not saying these experiences are universal, but I try to like to pass these things on. Number 12, for me, the worst year that I ever had professionally, business wise, was the year between the end of the Hill House room and the time the show premiered. Um, this room was like, it was so positive and so full of enthusiasm, but it took a whole year after for anybody to see the show. And I was just as cold could be business wise at that particular moment. I don't think I sold anything. And I blew really badly the one TV job interview I had, because when the creator of the show asked me to name some of my favorite horror movies in the moment, I just could not say, like, American Werewolf in London, Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm choking even now. It's always hard for me, by the way, to spew one of those lists off the top of my head. And so maybe have a few of those lined up for yourself. But I think the reason for the rough year was that there was a lot of buzz about the show, but it was also seen as kind of a risk for everybody involved. And I think everyone wanted to see it before they decide on whether or not to hire me again. Fortunately, it worked out. Very lucky so far. Number 13, this is weird, but like, so as a writer, when it's your episode or your outline or whatever, you're allowed to like leave the room and go write it. And I totally get it. And like, listen, everybody has a different process, but for me, I've just seen people leave the room sometimes for like 2 weeks and then come back and be hopelessly behind in giant pieces of story, and sort of like have to play catch up for a while, because you read the notes, but it's different when you're there. You just feel it evolve and you can see what it really is. So it's really hard to come back from some of those things. So I know like everybody in the Hill House room, in particular of the rooms that I've been in, just stayed and sort of did the work, like sort of outside of that time. And I've seen it off and on in other shows that I've worked on. And I just really I can't think of a single reason worth leaving the room for. It's such a condensed period of time. And you miss so much when you're gone. So number 14, last, once you are in a room, the titles, at least in my experience, have never seemed to matter. It's just a collective chasing ideas, chasing the best episode, the best season. I've never seen somebody anywhere at any level say, "How dare you speak up now, co-executive producer," or "You're out of line, story editor," or anything like that. Like, does it happen? I'm sure it happens, because everything happens. And I've just been very lucky so far, and I know that. But I'm also fully aware that nerves and speaking less and working your way into a room are the realities of most writers starting in their first room or even couple of rooms. And you can always see the struggle with that. And I think a lot of people want to reach out but just don't know how. But I think every time I've ever seen people reach out and say, "Hey, it's a safe place, everything's cool, don't worry," it always helps with that blossoming experience. The blossoming always comes, and everybody moves at their own pace. But it's very nice to see people participate in making other writers feel comfortable about that, because I totally get, and this is my little mea culpa I mentioned at the beginning, that it's hard for some people to go into this position and adapt to this thing and write in front of other people and make stuff up and share and all that stuff. Completely understandable. My own experience, once that room is up and running, a good idea is a good idea, and people are happy to take a good idea from where it comes, and are happy to just sit and have a conversation amongst equals, and usually eventually friends. You know what I mean? So there's 14 for you. One little last note to leave you on. I've had a bunch of people reach out because I know it's frustrating times and say to me like, "Hey, is it worth it?" Yes, it's absolutely worth it. Thank you all for being here. I'll be here every week this year. Coming soon, return to our produced videos. Coming soon, also a pre-WGA All-Stars version of our most popular Zoom breaking story, where we're going to turn ourselves into a writer's room to break a pilot outline. Also coming is a 5-part series of half-hour videos of me writing a pilot script. Anything to keep you here soaking up those minutes for YouTube, right? I appreciate you all. Best of luck, really, to all of us this year. See you next time.